What's good, Slime? Today we're going to be reacting to what happens if Pennywise gets disrupted in the 27-year cycle. Now, I really love Pennywise because there's hella lore behind it, but that's just me though. If y'all don't like this content, just let me know what y'all want me to react to. I mean, I make hella videos, so I'm just trying to make it out the hood, so let's just run it.
Stop taking meeting notes and
Oh,
let a
that's
click of
loud.
AI note taker do it for you.
That is loud.
Focus on your meetings, not your notes.
Okay. Yo, I hate this scene already, bro.
If you have been following our channel, you know that we've spent a lot of time exploring the horrifying world of Pennywise, dissecting the entity's behaviour, its feeding patterns, and the pure dread it inflicts on Derry. But today, I want to dive into something we don't talk about nearly enough, something that's actually been bugging me for years. What would happen if someone actually...
For years, bro. Yikes. That's scary, bro. What am I even saying? Oh my god.
found Pennywise while it was sleeping, not metaphorically asleep, but genuinely dormant in its lair beneath the sewers of Derry. What if someone actually tried to disturb the creature during those 27 years of hibernation? This question opens up a fascinating rabbit hole of possibilities that honestly might redefine how we understand Pennywise's entire existence.
This is what I like about these. Like, they have so much lore behind it. It's just so interesting, bro.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a
I'm sorry, y'all. I have to talk quiet because, my parents and shit. Or my family and shit.
very small request. If you like our content, please
Like some.
support us by subscribing to our channel.
I'm
This
gonna
is a
sub
small
later,
thing
bruh.
for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The feeding cycle, understanding Pennywise's hunger and rest. Before we can even contemplate disturbing Pennywise during its slumber, we need to understand exactly what drives this creature to feed in the first place. Pennywise isn't like a traditional predator. It doesn't hunt because it needs sustenance in the biological sense, at least not entirely. What Pennywise craves is fear. Stephen King actually gives us this chilling line in the novel. Fear salts the meat. During its active cycles, which typically last
Like seasoning.
from 1 to 2 years, Pennywise descends on Derry with methodical
Oh
precision.
my god. I've always wondered how long these kids got hunted for. 1 to 2 years, bro, of just Pennywise killing? That is crazy. That's actually crazy if you think about it, bro. That's crazy, bro. That would suck. That would actually suck. 1 to 2 years? Like, I don't think y'all comprehend that, bro. Imagine getting scared about this naked every day until one day you just lose and get eaten. Like, that dead ass sucks.
Carefully selects its victims, builds up their dread over time, and essentially marinates them in their own personal nightmares before striking. Children are particularly appealing targets because their imaginations are so vivid, so unfiltered, that the fear they produce is exponentially more potent than adult fear. After roughly 1 to 2 years of active hunting and psychological torment, often culminating in some massive catastrophic event like the Kitchener Ironworks explosion or a mysterious mass disappearance, Pennywise's hunger is finally sated. At that point, the entity retreats back to its lair, deep beneath the sewers of Derry, and enters a state of hibernation that will last approximately 27 years. The nature of dormancy, a rest like no other. From what we understand through the novels and the lore that's been developed, Pennywise isn't just sleeping in a simple biological process where the creature's body just powers down and waits for external stimuli to wake it up. The hibernation is more complex, more cosmic than that. Pennywise's true form, the deadlights...
Oh, that scares me, bro. Ew. Look at that.
more cosmic than that.
Not that. That. Oh, ew, bro. Holy shit, that's actually disgusting.
True form, the deadlights, those terrifying orange lights that exist in the macroverse beyond our reality, remains largely dormant in that higher dimension. The physical manifestation on Earth lies sleeping in the depths of the sewers, perhaps in some kind of nest or lair we've never fully seen or understood. What's absolutely fascinating to consider is that during this hibernation, Pennywise is described as being at its most vulnerable. The creature is powered down, essentially. Its influence over Derry doesn't completely disappear. There's always that underlying sense of dread that lingers in the town, even during the quiet years, but it's significantly diminished. the entity can't actively hunt. It can't project its reality-warping consciousness into the minds of potential
Crazy.
victims. It's trapped in its own form of purgatory, waiting for the biological clock to tick down to that magical 27-year mark. We don't actually know if Pennywise is conscious during this period. Does the creature dream? Does it exist in some kind of liminal space between consciousness and total obliteration? Is it experiencing time differently than we are, such that 27 years feels like mere moments to something that exists partially outside of traditional space and time? These
That's true,
questions
that's
are
true,
crucial
that's true.
because they fundamentally change how we should interpret what happens if someone tries to disturb the entity during this period.
What if like time moves faster when Pennywise is awake? That sounds stupid, but what if that's a possibility?
Let's be honest. There are billions of things
Oh
you'd
my
rather
god,
do
bro.
than look for insurance. Like assembling whatever that's.
The lair in the sewers, a physical anchor in our reality. If we're going to theorize about disturbing Pennywise during hibernation, we need to establish where exactly this creature would be sleeping. The sewers of Derry serve as Pennywise's primary lair, its home base, its sanctuary. It's as though Pennywise has warped the physical space.
We'll probably get some of these answers in like season 2 or season 3. Because there's gonna be 3 seasons of Welcome to Derry. It's true.
Itself, creating a sanctuary that's more macroverse than Earth. Deep within these sewers, in a chamber the book describes as the nest, Pennywise would theoretically be hibernating. This is where we've seen the corpses of past victims floating.
He probably is chilling in that box.
Where the creature's influence is strongest and most concentrated. If we're imagining someone, let's say a group of determined investigators, or perhaps even descendants of the Losers Club, discovering this lair and finding Pennywise in its dormant state, we're talking about the most physically dangerous moment imaginable. Now, here's where the scenario becomes genuinely terrifying. What if they tried to physically attack the creature while it slept? What if they brought weapons, guns, explosives, whatever, and tried to end Pennywise before it ever woke up for its next cycle? On the surface, this seems like the perfect solution, but the more you think about it, the more you realize this plan has some fundamental problems. The question of physical reality. Can you even attack something that might not exist? This is where I want to explore what I think is the most genuinely unsettling possibility. What if Pennywise's physical form in reality is so fundamentally connected to its consciousness and power that attacking it while...
That's true, because we can't even comprehend the deadlights. And he's the deadlights, so what if he's just the deadlights? But then again, he could be something physical, so we don't never know.
dormant
But maybe this will answer it. I don't know, but
would be like trying to stab a hologram. What if the giant spider form, the physical body that we know exists in those sewers, isn't actually solid in the way we understand solidity? Consider this. Pennywise's true form...
oh, he is a spider.
...is the deadlights, which exist in the macroverse. From that higher dimension, the entity projects a physical manifestation into our reality. First as Pennywise the clown, and then...
This is confusing, but
...as that massive spider. But what maintains this projection? The answer, I think, is consciousness and will. The entity has to be mentally engaged with our reality for its physical form to have substance and meaning. During hibernation, when that consciousness is dormant and that will is essentially suspended, what happens to the physical form? There's an interesting theory that Pennywise's relationship with the physical world is similar to a video game avatar. Imagine the true consciousness of Pennywise sitting comfortably in the macroverse, like a player on a couch holding a controller. The physical manifestation on Earth, whether it's the clown or the spider, is essentially a character on the screen. When the player puts the controller down and goes to sleep, the character doesn't disappear, but it becomes inert. It's still there, but it has no agency, no substance in the traditional sense. If this theory holds true, then trying to physically attack hibernating Pennywise might be a completely futile endeavor. The question of consciousness and vulnerability. But let's consider the opposite scenario. What if Pennywise is vulnerable during hibernation precisely because it does have to maintain some form of physical presence, some anchor point in our reality? What if the entity's consciousness does need to remain partially engaged with its physical body, even during dormancy, to prevent it from being completely severed from Earth? During
that's true.
hibernation, Pennywise would theoretically be in a state of diminished awareness. Its psychic powers would be reduced. Its ability to sense threats would be compromised. If someone could slip into the lair undetected and get close enough to the sleeping spider form without triggering any latent defense mechanisms, there might be a genuine window of opportunity. But here's the twist. We've never actually seen anyone attempt this in the books or adaptations, and there's probably a very good reason for that. Even dormant Pennywise would have some form of awareness. The entity can sense when children are afraid, when their imaginations are active and drawing power. During hibernation, this sense might be muted, but it's probably not entirely gone. If someone were actively pursuing the creature with intent to harm it, they would likely be projecting a kind of psychic energy, imagination, fear,
The sign.
that they mean to do damage. Pennywise, even in its weakened state, might sense this. What if, in sensing a threat, Pennywise doesn't fully wake up?
Bro, why this image? They got my boy lacking, bro.
It enters into some kind of defensive half-consciousness, a state where it's not fully active but alert enough to protect itself. During this intermediate state, the creature might be partially manifested, partially connected to the macroverse, existing in a state of quantum uncertainty. It could theoretically be destroyed, but approaching it would be like sticking your hand into a blender that's only halfway turned on.
Don't raise dragons right off the bat. For new players, at the start of the game, don't rush to raise dragons. You might get a powerful dragon at the beginning.
The theory of distributed existence. What if physical location doesn't matter? What if the creature's actual presence during dormancy is so dispersed throughout Derry, so interwoven with the town itself, that the lair is almost irrelevant? We know that Derry is fundamentally connected to Pennywise's existence. The town attracts tragedy and violence naturally, even when the entity isn't actively hunting. The inhabitants of Derry suffer an unusually high rate of violent crime, accidents, and mysterious disappearances throughout the entire 27-year cycle, not just during active feeding periods. It's as though Pennywise's influence seeps into the very fabric of the town, contaminating it even while the creature sleeps. What if, during hibernation, Pennywise isn't localized to the sewers at all? What if the entity's consciousness is actually distributed across the entire geography of Derry? The lair would still be the center, the focal point, but the creature's awareness might extend in threads and tendrils throughout the town. In this scenario, trying to attack Pennywise would be like trying to kill an entity that exists everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. You could destroy the physical spider form in the sewers, but you'd still be dealing with a distributed consciousness that's woven into the very stones and streets of Derry. The paradox of time and existence.
I mean, that would be better than him physically, right?
Outside causality. One of the most unsettling truths about Pennywise is that it doesn't operate under the same rules of time and causality that bind the rest of us. The creature comes from outside our universe, from the macroverse, a realm where time itself might work differently. The 27-year cycle might not even be something Pennywise consciously maintains. It might be more like an instinctual biological rhythm, the way certain animals migrate or hibernate based on seasonal changes. If this is true, then disturbing Pennywise during hibernation might be like trying to wake up a creature that's responding to cosmic forces we can't even perceive. The entity might wake up based on something completely unrelated to your attempts to harm it. It might wake up because some alignment of celestial bodies has triggered its predatory instinct. It might wake up because enough fear and violence has naturally accumulated in Derry that its power threshold has been reached. Your interference might be completely irrelevant to the creature's awakening process. Also, what if attempting to harm Pennywise while dormant actually triggers an early awakening? What if the very act of an attack of malicious intent directed at the creature acts like an alarm clock that jolts it from its slumber? Your attempt to stop Pennywise before it becomes active could actually accelerate its awakening, forcing the entity to manifest fully ahead of schedule, angry and disoriented, but desperate to understand what woke it. The amnesia factor. Does Derry forget about the darkness? There's something genuinely tragic and sinister about how Derry handles its relationship with Pennywise. After each cycle, after Pennywise retreats into hibernation, the people of Derry collectively forget. They carry on with their lives as though the disappearances are just isolated incidents. Parents lose children, and seem almost unable to muster a full response of grief or action. It's as though the entire town exists under a
I
psychic
got my Fanta.
compulsion to forget. This amnesia is likely related to Pennywise's presence, even during dormancy. The creature's influence keeps the townspeople passive, forgetful, and complicit. But what if, during hibernation, this psychic compulsion is actually weakened? What if there's a window of clarity, a period where someone with enough determination and knowledge can potentially organise a response? What if the late years of the 27-year cycle represent a genuine opportunity for Derry to act? This raises an interesting scenario. What if a group of people with proper knowledge and preparation, perhaps descendants of the Losers Club or survivors of previous cycles, actually mounted an expedition into the sewers during the later years of hibernation, when Pennywise's psychic influence was waning but not yet building again? The belief propagates how imagination shapes reality around Pennywise. We all know that the creature is deeply invested in operating within the boundaries of forms it takes. When Pennywise manifests as Pennywise the Clown, it gains all the advantages and disadvantages of that form. If it manifests as a werewolf, it suddenly has the vulnerabilities of a werewolf. This isn't just a limitation, it's
He's been a
actually
werewolf
has the
before?
vulnerabilities of a
Oh.
werewolf. This isn't just a limitation,
Oh, I hated
it's
that scene.
actually the core mechanism through which Pennywise can be fought. The Losers Club defeated Pennywise not through superior physical strength, but through collective belief. When they truly believed that they could kill the creature, when they weaponized their imagination and fear against it, they actually gained the power to harm it. The entity is vulnerable to the very force that makes it powerful, imagination and belief. Now, imagine applying this to the hibernation scenario.
See, I'm confused why only some people get the Shining. And how did, like, I don't know, I'm just confused. Like, how did everybody in that, like, that 2017 group get the Shining? It makes no sense. I mean, they must have got really lucky, I guess, but I don't know. Just a thought.
If someone were to approach the sleeping Pennywise with absolute conviction
Actually, never mind.
that it could be permanently destroyed while dormant, would that belief actually manifest as a real vulnerability? Could the creature's form, already weakened by dormancy, become even more fragile in the presence of someone whose imagination and will are absolutely resolute about its destruction? It's a fascinating possibility that the act of believing strongly enough in Pennywise's vulnerability could actually create that vulnerability. The ripple effect. What happens to Derry if Pennywise wakes early? Let's consider what would happen if someone actually managed to disturb Pennywise during hibernation and forced an early awakening. This is about the cascading consequences for an entire town. When Pennywise wakes up ahead of schedule, it would likely be disoriented, confused, and absolutely furious. The entity might not have completed its full hibernation cycle, meaning its power might not be fully restored. On the other hand, being suddenly jolted awake could trigger a panic response, a desperate surge of power, as the creature tries to understand what's happened and eliminate the threat. Derry would likely experience sudden, violent upheavals, unexplained accidents, spontaneous violence among the townspeople, a spike in the psychic oppression that the entity maintains over the area. More disturbing still, if Pennywise were truly weakened or damaged during its hibernation state, it might not have the energy to complete a full feeding cycle. It might have to feed more aggressively, hunting with less subtlety.
Valorant.
And psychological finesse.
This guy's scary, and welcome to Derry. Like, really scary, bro.
The town could be plunged into a nightmare scenario where Pennywise, rather than carefully terrorizing victims over weeks and months, is forced into desperate, violent frenzies just to gain enough power to restore itself. Derry might transform into an absolute nightmare of disappearances and violence in a compressed time frame. The question of true death. Can Pennywise actually die during hibernation? We know from the books that the Losers Club managed to defeat the entity through confrontation and collective will. They fought it while it was awake, at full or near full power. They still barely survived. But what if an attack during hibernation could actually permanently end the creature? If Pennywise's consciousness is partially distributed throughout Derry, even during dormancy, then destroying just the physical body wouldn't be enough. But if you could somehow strike at both the physical form in the lair and the distributed consciousness simultaneously, could you actually achieve permanent death? Would destroying the sleeping spider form while simultaneously flooding the town with a massive surge of joy, laughter, and collective disbelief in the entity's power actually work? Or is Pennywise truly immortal, as Stephen King has suggested, with the ability to regenerate and return no matter what damage is inflicted? Would a successful attack during hibernation only force the creature into an even deeper state of dormancy? Or perhaps drive it to seek a different location entirely? Would it retreat to the macroverse and simply never return to Earth? These questions suggest that disturbing Pennywise during hibernation might not actually solve anything. It might just postpone the inevitable, or worse, transform the problem into something we're even less equipped to handle. Marvelous verdict, the unknowable horror with no definite answer. When it comes down to it, the true horror of Pennywise is the fundamental uncertainty that surrounds it. We don't fully understand how the entity exists, what it's doing during those 27 years of hibernation, or even whether our traditional notions
Well, it's probably sleeping, right?
of physical attack
Come
and
on, man.
harm actually apply to something so fundamentally alien and cosmic. Disturbing Pennywise during its rest period might be theoretically possible, but whether it would result in the creature's destruction, its early awakening, or something else entirely remains unknowable. The
I got
entity
what you know.
exists partially outside our reality, operates according to rules we can barely comprehend, and seems almost designed to be incomprehensible to human minds. What I find most fascinating is that Stephen King left these questions unanswered for a reason. The mystery is the horror. The fact that we can't know what would happen if someone tried to kill Pennywise during hibernation is more terrifying than any concrete answer could ever be. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this intriguing topic, and also share your views on the ongoing Welcome to Derry series.
Alright, y'all. Well, we didn't even get the answer, but that video opened my mind to more scenarios. So, we appreciate that. And yeah, y'all. So, if y'all enjoyed, like, sub, all that. Yes, you have a good day, alright, twin? And listen to Osama's son. Little O. Let me feature, bro. But yeah.